So first of all, I'll make 3 points. The first point is that I think that whether this was going to be COVID or a terrorist attack or an accidental war with Iran, the world was in very excessive leverage. And whatever would have come along in 2020, and a lot of people were looking for something to come along that was somewhat catastrophic, would have punctured this bubble of excessive debt on many levels, at the household level, at the government level, at the corporate level. That's the first point. And the second point I want to make is that, you know, a lot of these, I teach at, you know, universities in Hong Kong, and I teach in Boston, and I teach in London. You know, everyone's in trouble, right? Everybody's in trouble. Everybody is being forced to reinvent themselves. And I think this is especially true at the university level. I believe the Amazon moment for universities has arrived. I think that the debt levels for the student debt are at very excessive, and so this is also problematic. So, oh, thank you. I see the slides are up. Would you mind going to the next page, please, on page 2? So what I want to talk about is, okay, what are we going to do about it? And what I would suggest that we need to do about it in Singapore, which I think Singapore is remarkable in its governance. And you know, David and I talk all the time, and we agree on things, and we don't agree on things. I think that what we're going to be seeing going forward is we're going to see the smart countries are going to have to circle the wagons and get everyone working together. The government's going to have to work closer with the private sector. The universities are going to have to step up. Rich people are going to have to put their hands in their pockets and start funding foundations. And corporates are going to have to start bucking up and getting people into training centers. Corporates just can't stand by and be firing people left, right, and center. That's not going to work. And so that's my message. We're going to have to circle the wagons everywhere, and everyone's going to have to pitch in here, or there's going to be very serious problems. The private sector by itself is simply, it's impossible for the private sector to pick itself up right now. That's just not in the cards. And as an example, I want to go forward here that we have some major corporates stepping up in terms of incubators. So Singapore, we need to think about incubators and accelerators, right? We have the Qualcomm Accelerator, we have Originate Labs, we have Green Wings Biomedical, we have Stubbs, Alderton, and for law. We have Disney Accelerator, we have for the cloud and media and the environment. The government's going to have to start having some private conversations with some of the rich people in Singapore and some of the big companies and say, you know what, you need to step up and start retraining people because otherwise this can't work. I really believe that. It's just impossible for people to just have to go back and take a class on something. There's going to have to be a very united effort. If we can go to the next page, please. That's very kind. So on the next page, we can see just some examples of what universities are doing and what Google did. Last week, Google said, you know what, you can skip university. We are going to create a Google career certificate that's going to substitute for a university degree with foundational skills to help job seekers. Courses designed to be completed in 6 months. Certification for a 4-year degree. NYU Poly Power Labs, MIT Global Founders. Stanford probably has the best one. I'm going to focus on that in a minute. USC and the LA Art Center Design Accelerator. These are all systems where I think, you know, I know that SUS does really interesting stuff. NUS is doing great stuff. I think all of that needs to be stepped up very dramatically to get a triangle between the corporate sector and the worker to help get retrained, and the government has to be a part of this. Otherwise, I just believe very strongly economies that don't do this will fall apart. Next slide, please. In the next one, I show you just focusing in on the 6 things. What if we could wave a wand and have 6 things? These are the 6 things you want to be thinking about when you're putting together programs. Industry, what do we need in Singapore? I think one of the most interesting things in Singapore that could be quite a huge benefit to Singapore is, and again, this is a kind of a controversial program because it's basically import substitution by saying, you know what, if Australia is going to ban its fruit or meat exports to the rest of the world, fine. We're going to have to create subsidy programs for protein alternatives, for protein plant vertical farming. And so I think vertical farming for protein substitutes, I think is going to be a huge business in Singapore, and can you know, Singapore should be the capital, the world's capital of the Impossible Burger. Funding, again, you know, just talk to the large companies here and say, you know what, you're a great corporate citizen, start coughing up some money. Number 3, mentorship. You know, incentivize superannuation funds to get involved in private equity. I think this is really important. I know Singapore, the Temasek does this, you know, ST Innovate does this. I think we should do more of it. Education, customized apps are out there and are cheap. And then number 6, on the resources, you know, give people space, legal, payroll, platforms, storage. You know, San Francisco does this, London does this in big scale. So these are some of the examples I would use. This is what we can do while we're dealing with COVID, by the way. You know, these are things these are not, you know, exclusive to, you know, to dealing with COVID at the same time. I do agree that COVID creates obviously very problematic dynamics. But, you know, I got to tell you guys, I think COVID is only speeding up what was already inevitable. A lot of companies in Singapore were not competitive for many, many years. Lian Feng in Hong Kong is a great example of an old company that was great that just died. It just collapsed under its own weight because it never changed. And there are companies in Singapore like that. These were companies that were great in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, and they've been falling by the wayside for 10 years. COVID is only speeding up what was already underway in universities with some of these uncompetitive conglomerates, airlines, and so forth. Next slide, please. And the next one, you'll see that, right, there are initiatives all over the world that are focusing on demographic groups. There is no reason why some of these types of venture capital funds and you know, sort of a pooled capital, whatever Singapore decides to do, young people, you know, focusing on the young, focusing on the LGBT community, focusing on women, especially, they are especially hurt during COVID. This is really important. NGOs, there's every reason for NGOs to be vitally important here, especially in the issue of the environment. Next slide, please. On the next one, we see some cities, right? So every city's in trouble, and every city is going to be doing things to try to take business away from Singapore. And Singapore is going to have to do everything it can to try to take business away from other cities. This is how this competitive game works, whether it's Hong Kong or Dublin. You know, there's lots of centers of excellence around the world that also have 5 million people. Barcelona, you know, has 5 million people, right? Hong Kong has basically, you know, sort of a 5 million people workforce, right? You know, Berlin is a global leader in a lot of the fintech. It's a very small population city. So Singapore needs to put itself on the map, and I think that Singapore should really be taking its best foot forward and showing the world that it has confidence, because people have great confidence in the government and its ability to be able to address issues in a way that a lot of other governments aren't doing very well right now. And the next slide, just look at a couple of, you know, a couple of initiatives that are being done in cities like the United States. Again, cities are also small populations. Austin, Texas, created a sound and entertainment and technology and music capital of the country in 15 years. Pasadena, a very small old city in California, is becoming one of the design capitals of California. Venice is now, I used to live there. It was like a crack den, crime infested area. Now it is one of the fintech areas of California, right? And so population should not be a restriction here. Dublin, same thing. Look at what Dublin did to come back from the dead. Amazing stuff. Germany in Berlin, same thing. So I think there's a lot going on. Next slide, please, shows you the things that can be done. Prizes, prizes, prizes. $1,000 is a lot of money to somebody right now. Give prizes for problems. State a problem, and it can be the government, it can be a university, it can be a company. State a problem and give a prize. Right? Pension contributions to private equity, equipment and space for innovators. Again, a task force czar for protein, I think, in Singapore. Lobbying groups. There needs to be more effective lobbying groups. The FinTech Association is great. Japan has the Japan Association for the New Economy. Town halls, more town halls, right? People need to hear what ideas people have on a very neighborhood level of what can be done. And then the last one is it gives you some examples of the prizes that are available. The Google Milestone Prize, got somebody to the moon, right? The Cognicity.com is a great one. Loyalty 360. Again, just going to the last slide. The Ansari Prize, get somebody to do a private sector spaceship. They won $10 million. DARPA has all kinds of programs, and they have large prizes for self-driving cars. A huge prize that was given out to create the longest living mouse, right? A NASA prize. I think prizes are vital here. $1,000 is a lot of money to somebody right now. And with that, I'll end. And the last page is my books, one of which I wrote with David. Another one just came out, The Race for 5G Supremacy, also World Scientific, published in Singapore. So that's all I got, and I'm looking forward to questions.